Hi, my name is Suzanne Moore and I'm a real estate broker here in Key West. I've also been a resident here on the island for 31 years and I'm the Realtor Political Action Committee Chair for the Key West Association of Realtors. Over the last 3 weeks, I have sat down with all 9 candidates that are running for Commissioner and Mayor. Why they should vote for Sarah for Commissioner this year? Why should they vote for Bobby Lurie?
Trying to bring people together.
What I have accomplished in 23 months, my opponent hasn't done in 8 years.
That's not factual.
Okay.
It's not factual.
I asked them all property-related questions, including but not limited to housing, property rights, short-term rentals, property taxes, the workings of the building department, and all things real estate. All these interviews are available on my YouTube channel, no cuts and no edits. If you'd like to watch these, just click the link below, and I hope that these interviews will help you decide who to vote for in the upcoming elections. Today, I have the privilege of introducing our current commissioner, Commissioner Sam Kaufman, who is running for mayor this year. Welcome, Sam. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming.
Appreciate it.
So, before we get started, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your history here in Key West, and why you're running for mayor this year?
Sure. Again, my name is Sam Kaufman. I've lived in Key West for about 28 years now. I have a law practice, started here in the late 90s. I came down to work at the public defender's office as a young lawyer. And thankfully I was hired by Rosemary Enright, who was a former public defender. And in 2002, I started my own law practice. These days, I mostly do estate planning, probate work, trust administration. I still have a criminal defense practice, and I have 2 lawyers that work along with me in my law firm, and we also do family law. So we have a pretty busy law practice and been blessed to be successful there. My wife works with me in the law firm. We've worked together for over 20 years. We have 2 great kids. One graduated from Key West High School in 2025 and now attends University of Florida. Mm-hmm. My son is a rising junior. He is a great kid. And I was married here. My kids are born here. And Key West is my home. I have really, a lot of people say, I'm going to go home to such and such place mm-hmm. and that sort of thing. And I don't have that situation. I don't have another place that I consider home. Mm-hmm. This is it. And we love Key West for all the people here and everything that Key West is about, especially its unique character. Why I'm running for mayor? It's similar to those reasons how I first came here. I first came to Key West, immediately felt welcomed here, immediately felt the sense of inclusion. And unfortunately in City Hall over the last 2 years, a lot of people feel that's not the case mm-hmm. with City Hall. I don't believe that's the case for Key West in general. I still believe that this is the same welcoming place, same inclusive place, but we need to change City Hall for a number of reasons. There's been chaos over the last 2 years, total, in my opinion, dysfunction in administration. There's been no water quality testing practically, not a single water quality presentation to the City Commission as an example, which is really problematic. Because our environment is so important for our tourist economy. If something were to go wrong, and there's a lot of potential pitfalls there, but we can make a course correction, and we can do things better. The last 2 years, the city has had no strategic plan. Imagine as a small business person, if you had no business plan or you had no marketing plan. Well, that's the city for the last 2 years under the current leadership. There's so many things that we can improve, and I'm in the unique position as being a commissioner for the last 11 years. I'm in the unique position of having the skill set and the experience to be able to do that. So does it have to be me? No, but I am in that position where I can make a positive difference.
Right. So yes, you've been commissioner for how many years now?
I'm in my 11th year.
In your 11th year. And so there's been quite a lot of changes over those 11 years on the dais. Mm-hmm. And as this is not a question that some of the other incoming candidates can answer because they're not currently serving as a commissioner. Mm-hmm. Where have you seen the biggest changes in the last 10 years in the commission?
Well, in the last 2 years, we have so many new people. We have a new city manager without experience in municipal government, without education in that area. We have a number of new commissioners. So I can't imagine any previous commission that I've been on. I've been on a number of commissions because every 2 years we have elections. So every 2 years there's the potential for a new set of people on the commission. I can't imagine any of the previous commissions to vote against water quality testing, to vote against our gay and lesbian community. This mayor voted against even the resolution to support our Haitian community for an extension of TPS. It's shameful. It's shameful. We're supposed to be representing the entire community, whether they're voters or not.
Right.
And to not have the backs of our local immigrant workforce, it's not what we consider to be one human family, and it's harmful to our community.
Right.
It's harmful to our unique character. It's harmful to our brand. It's harmful to how people view Key West, and that's why so many people are so much thinking that this is a pivotal election.
Yes, it has been quite a talked about, very publicized election. So there's a lot of people are looking at what's happening. A lot of people are listening, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to talk to people on this one-to-one. So particularly when it comes to real estate, RPAC, some of the things that are going to impact all the homeowners, business owners. So why don't we get into that?
Of course. Ready.
First question we want to talk about is property rights. So let's talk everything. My favorite subject, which would be housing, of course. So, but we're going to talk about affordable housing, workforce housing, and of course, Key West has very little land remaining, right? So if we're going to create additional housing, and that's a question, do we need to create additional housing for our workforce or affordable? A lot of people are saying we've spent millions of dollars in the last 10 years. We've got projects everywhere. Are they maximized? Are they being, utilized to the maximum of their ability? Or do we need to build more? What is your whole impression on the whole workforce versus affordable housing we currently have here in Key West?
The answer is yes and no.
Okay.
There's a lot of nuances to that, and a lot of. I could tell you that this particular city administration has been going in the wrong direction. For example, before the current city manager was in place, there was an effort in the planning department in developing revisions to our land development regulations, specifically to improve our regulations pertaining to affordable housing. That ceased when this particular administration was in place. You can see the horrible result at Searstown, for example. My campaign is grounded in having a level playing field, in no special deals for political insiders. You could see just in that one example of now they're calling it the Conch Republics.
I only heard that today, actually.
So as a small business person,
right.
I'm offended by it. Why? My office is literally across the street from Searstown.
Right.
I have to compete with my employees to find housing with the new Publix Searstown Plaza, where they're going to grow and have more employees. They're expanding the square footage, meaning they're going to have the ability to have more employees, and they have no responsibility to provide any affordable housing. Now, as you know, in residential redevelopment, there is an affordable housing requirement. In other words, if you're going to build 8 or 10 new apartment units, you are required by our current code to provide a certain number of affordable housing units as part of that 8 or 10 units.
Right.
There is no such requirement in commercial redevelopment. Now, myself in particular, had been working on that, and then we had something called the ZIP ordinance. I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but we had a zoning in progress ordinance a couple years ago. But the bottom line is this administration dropped the ball. They wouldn't pursue it. And the day that Publix could submit their application for Searstown, the day it was available, they submitted it when they knew they didn't have to provide any affordable housing. And it's terrible for our community. Because, look, is that going to solve our affordable housing problem? No. But this is one example after I could give you example after example after example of missteps and mistakes and missed opportunities that our city hall has taken. So
let's just go back, because
right.
I know that you're talking about current administration, and that's been there for the past 2 years.
Yes.
What about how things were managed before this current administration? How are things then compared to now?
Well, as you know, there was an effort to fire the city manager before. That was Al Childress, and that was done intentionally. And that's part and parcel to what I'm describing. There are powerful insiders that did not want commercial redevelopment to have a requirement for affordable housing.
Why do you think that is the case?
Publics got away with not having to pay millions of dollars because there's a payment in lieu provision, as you know, in our land development regulations. In other words, in residential redevelopment, if you are building an 8 to 10 unit apartment building, right, and you choose or you are unable to actually build the affordable housing units, you can make a payment in lieu of building the actual units. And our current code, I think, has it at $200,000 to $250,000 per unit. So let's say, for example, Publix, based upon the code that we were, really needing to get into our code, but this administration chose not to pursue it. Let's say they needed 10 or 12 units. That's $2.5, $3 million that Publix saved. They didn't have to pay to the city for Affordable Housing Trust Fund. On Monday, we have our budget workshop starting. You're going to see we have basically zero in our Affordable Housing Trust Fund for new projects. It's frustrating for a person like me that's been fighting for affordable housing for years, and you see that there's no emphasis, there's no motivation in City Hall, there's no plans. Like I said, City Hall has had no strategic plan for 2 years. As you know, I'll give you another example, TDC funding. We get TDC money, right? Part of the bed tax, as maybe your listeners know, 12.5% per room is added as far as what the guest has to pay. That's going to affordable housing. A portion of the 12.5% that is added, it's called the bed tax, and that's Tourist Development Council money. That part of that money goes to the Land Authority Trust Fund from the county. A portion of that is designated for the city. The city doesn't have a plan for how to use that money. Instead, all they do is blindly give the money to the Housing Authority. That's what they did in the last 2 years, without any requirements. And what did they do? Another thing that's really horrendous for our community. This mayor and this city commission gave $1.2 million of that money to the Housing Authority to close the only assisted living facility that we have. My mother's 90 years old. She can't live here. People like us that need a place for our parents and our grandparents. And what did the city commission do? What did this mayor do? What did our city manager do? Nothing. They hid this until the very last minute. It was on the agenda. We had 7 days notice. That's the wrong way to handle these things. The more professional way to handle this is to let the public know. The private sector could have come in and saved that assisted living facility. I'm 100% sure of that. But they kept it quiet because they wanted the $1.2 million and they wanted to create more housing within the Housing Authority.
So when you say they, who specifically are you talking about?
The city right now is controlled by a very few number of people. If you look at all the decisions, whether it's the decisions about Mallory Square or the tree program, which is another debacle, disaster. I hope maybe you'll ask me about that. Look at the fraud that is ongoing and exemplified by just the tree program. All of these decisions, whether it's Mallory Square, Higgs Beach, the $350,000 package for the city manager's salary, where is all this coming from? It's coming from a very small number of people, some of which are funding the mayor's PAC against me. And it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense why powerful insiders don't want me to be mayor. Because you could tell from what I'm telling you that there's enormous change that is needed. And that's what people in Key West want. I have conks yesterday calling me up, multi-generational families telling me, Sam, I've got 6 ballots here. If I told you the names of these families, you'd be, wow. I totally disagree with the fact this is a conk versus non-conk thing.
Right.
Absolutely false narrative. That's not true. People are really looking forward to an honest government, an open government where decisions are made in the public, not behind closed doors.
Well, let's hope that we can, that's the way of the future of the city of Key West. But so let's get to one of the questions that people have asked about is with the current building height restrictions that we have, both residential and commercial. We're trying to adapt to climate change. New housing has to be built up, but yet our height regulations have remained the same for many, many years. Would you be open to revisiting the height regulations on residential real estate? And also, what about height regulations on commercial? We've talked about this. People have talked about it. Do we put another story on? Does it really make a huge difference? Are you open to discussions about that?
I would be open to presenting that to the voters. I think it's I mean, if it's a reasonable height, we're never going to be having the same 7 stories like Santa Clara or La Concha.
I'm not specifically talking either about historic Key West. I'm talking more of the development that's happening with 1-story houses being removed, as you can see all over town, you know, with the ranch-style houses because they've gotten flooded over time, but yet the 2nd stories seem to be restricted to, 8 feet ceiling height because they can't go any higher because of our local height restrictions.
I think that would be a really good. I think that has to go before the voters.
Yeah.
I think that would be fair to present to the voters if it's a modest proposal, simply to accommodate a 2nd floor. I don't think that the reason why we have the height restriction is to limit that sort of opportunity necessarily. I'm a property rights person myself, by the way.
Okay.
I am strongly for property rights. I am very critical of how code enforcement handles things. I've been that way my whole career. I intervene as I can as people bring these types of things to my attention. And as you may know, if you watch city commission meetings, whenever an easement comes up, for example, I always ask, why does a person have to, for a minor easement application, for example, why does a person have to hire a lawyer, hire an architect, hire an engineer, and go all the way through the city commission process? Why can't we streamline that in an administrative way to save the money for the property owner? Those are the types of things that I would bring.
Surely that makes normal common sense. I mean, you've been on the commission for a long time. I mean, has that been proposed before?
Every time it comes to the city commission, I propose it.
Right.
I ask the planning, and the current planning director says that he's working on it.
Right.
I've heard that before too. So we need a mayor that is going to hold people's feet to the fire. And actually, the mayor, I don't know if you know this, the mayor is the only person that can call a special meeting. So now two commissioners can, but we have a sunshine law. 2 commissioners are not allowed to talk in advance. So it's difficult for 2 commissioners to call a special meeting, right? I've never violated the sunshine law. I'm a lawyer. I have too much respect for the law. Never going to happen. So the only person realistically that can call a special meeting is the mayor. Now, she's only called 1 special meeting in the last 2 years. And that was disastrous. That's where she proposed to have the police department deputized as ICE agents. What a disaster that has been. And unnecessary. And our own legal counsel said that was unnecessary. But that's the only special meeting. I mean, we have a need for reforming and updating our land development regulations. We have all these issues with property taxes. We have issues with climate change, affordable housing. Not a single meeting on any of these things, and she doesn't even talk about these things.
Well, we're gonna get what you think about some of these things as we talk. Ed, do you think that the city should offer property owners some incentives to provide long-term housing for the local workforce instead of these monthly rentals that we see throughout town? And if you do what kind of incentives would they be? Do you think we can do anything at a local level?
Of course, the planning department. This is the problem is that we have such transition in City Hall and a lack of institutional knowledge, especially at this point in time. It's a little bit frustrating, from my perspective. When Patrick Wright, who's now our growth management director, when he was our planning director, he was tasked with doing these things, and he would tell you, yeah. And did it ever happen? No. We're in this cycle of look. I've worked with 6 city managers in 11 years.
That seems to be a tremendous turnover. I mean, let's just excuse the last 2 years, but what about all the turnover that we've had over the last, you're saying 6 city managers in 11 years. That seems to be a massive transition. I mean,
yeah, but we had a lot of stability. I mean, between Jim Scholl to Greg Velez to Patty McLaughlin, all of them were in the manager's office.
Yes.
For those years.
Yeah.
Now, remember, you had Brian Barroso come in with basically no one in the manager's office with any experience. Rod Delestrinos is his assistant city manager. He came from the transit department. He was not in the manager's office before. Mike Turner was the other assistant. We have a manager now with 3 assistant city managers. That's another problem.
Right, but
it's way
what
too
we're
much.
talking about, that's very recent, but we've had 6 city managers in 11 years. So even before the current administration, we're dealing with this constant change.
Right, but there was stability in that Jim Scholl,
Right.
then we had Greg Velez, and then we had Patty McLaughlin. They were all in the city manager's office. In other words, the transition was more seamless
Right.
because you had Greg Velez, who had been in the city manager's office for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years prior to becoming city manager. You had then Patty McLaughlin, who had been a city employee for 35 years
Right.
and had been in the manager's office as a city assistant city manager. So that all worked really well because, and also we had a very strong city commission with people on the, when I was on the city commission with people like Jimmy Weekley, Clayton Lopez, Billy Wardlow,
Right.
all these folks, Terry Johnston, they had all been on the city commission for a long time. So, interestingly enough, we a lot of times didn't even have to have long discussions because we all knew the issues. We all knew how we all felt about it, and it was much more united,
Right.
even though some of us are Republicans, some of us are Democrats, but we knew what was best for our community.
Right.
This group is a new commission without the same experience, without leadership from the manager's office, and so it's created dysfunction and chaos. And that's a big part of it. Without the transition of having people with experience in the manager's office, from my perspective.
Well, I mean, I can certainly agree. It seems to be it's very public what's going on. But also, let's, if you want to talk about City Hall, let's talk about, before this administration, there's certainly some difficulties going on with, what happened with our planning and our building department and the city attorney and all of those things that happened. And your, current mayor does say, hey, she inherited all of that. Do you agree with that? Or, she inherited a lot of problems?
That's not factual.
Okay.
It's not factual. The mayor was elected in August of 2024. The city attorney, who she worked very closely with, and I did not even speak to for her first 8 months because I was raising these issues. And
you didn't speak to the city attorney?
I did not. I had no relationship with the city attorney. I was, if for those who follow the record and follow the city commission meetings, I was consistently asking for independent counsel because Mr. Ron Ramsing had a direct conflict with respect to his brother, who was named in the consultant's report known as the Corradino report, which some of my colleagues said they admitted under oath that they've never read. Unbelievable that could be the case. But if you read the consultant's report, when this all first started, and you read the consultant's report, that's Mr. Corradino, the main recommendation was do more investigation.
Right.
He only found a few areas that looked like misconduct. He said there's probably more, go further, investigate. I took that as the call to investigate. So I pushed for that. And Ron Ramsing, continually pushed back at me, and he insisted that I speak with him about these issues, which I thought was unlawful, unethical, and inappropriate. And so I kept asking for independent counsels. On the record, I presented a resolution which was not approved by the city commission. I fought hard to do everything I could. Once I was on notice that there was an issue, I asked Brian Barroso, follow up with an investigation, put this on the city agenda. He said no explanation. I asked Todd Stoughton when he was city manager. He said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'll wait for the next city manager to do it. So to say that, the mayor wasn't there. She was there for the first 8 months. She didn't do any of this. And let's face it, if you look at the allegations against Ron Ramsing, the main case that he has against him is the charge of tampering with evidence. Everybody knows that, right?
Right.
Well, what's the evidence he tampered with? That's the removal of the mayor's text messages. Well, if the mayor wasn't involved, then why were her text messages removed?
But it seemed like...
How is that not being involved?
It does seem, I have no side in this, but it does seem that there was a lot of stuff happening, can you agree, for many years, it seemed, before the mayor became the mayor.
Right. But when we were on notice, she was on notice for her first 8 months.
Right.
Even now, even now, look at the recommendations from the grand jury reports. She takes, her votes are ignore the recommendations from the grand jury reports. That's a record.
And of course, you know, Mayor's not here to answer these questions, and so I don't know, you know, some of the things that you're saying. So, and maybe we'll
It's
have
all on the record.
Maybe we'll have the opportunity to, you know, talk with both of you at the same time.
I
So-
could tell you that people who purchase real estate in this town want an above-the-board city hall. They want a
Absolutely.
fair-minded.
I
They
agree.
want a follow the law and order. That's it.
I agree.
When you have a mayor who votes against the grand jury reports, okay, and the language, this is very dangerous language that the mayor and others use. They said that the grand jurors were unqualified. That's the explanation. I don't think people who are purchasing real estate in this town, I'm talking to realtors,
Yep.
are going to think, you know, the criminal justice system is not, you know, quite up to par here. If they have jurors who are unqualified and making decisions in this town, sounds like the criminal justice system is corrupt too. I'm telling you, I am absolutely opposed to that sort of language. Elected and public officials should not be speaking about our justice system in those terms. That's a dangerous thing. It's a very dangerous thing, and should never have. And the city attorney didn't correct it. I spoke up and I said that's not appropriate.
Right. Well, so I think that, anyone who's buying real estate in Key West certainly wants to, you know, I do want to bring up what's happening with, you know, permitting and how things are done at the city, and how can we, you know, at the local level, and you as the mayor, how can we improve those things? Because it's certainly, from my own experience, I have people all the time going, I'm having a terrible time with the building department, really having a terrible time.
Yeah.
And we actually asked one of the people that are running, who is on the planning board, I say, what do you think is the problem over there? You know, why are people getting pushed back all the time? And he says, well, most people are not organized enough, they don't have their paperwork done enough. And I said, I don't know if that's really the case. There seems to be a lot of miscommunication between departments. And how do you go about fixing that? How do we go about streamlining it to make it easier for the general public, so that people are not intimidated, number one, by going into City Hall, you know, because I do believe that's the case.
Yes.
They tend to try to avoid it.
100%.
They always tend to think that they're going to say no, or that makes it difficult, for instance, the easement situation. So how do we make it easier for the general consumer?
I'm for that 100%. And in this town, there's a fear of retaliation, 100%. People complaining, they're afraid. I have people coming up to me all the time. They have this issue or that issue, and they support me, by the way, but they say it quietly because they're afraid of retaliation from City Hall, or the housing authority, or losing their job. And that's a bad culture to have. We should be this is one human family. Whoever you support, I have friends who support Dee Dee Henriquez. Great, it's okay, I get it, that's fine. You grew up with her and her family, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. But getting to your question, first of all, you need to have a functional and organized city hall. That's to be the basis of everything. And we don't have that, number one. For example, can you tell me who the city building official is?
At the moment, it's not Patrick.
No, he's growth management.
He's growth
But
management.
you're a realtor.
Yes.
Do you know who the city building official is?
Not at the moment.
Right.
Right.
I can't tell you who it is either.
Right.
I'm a city commissioner.
Right.
That's a problem.
Why is that?
It's because we have a dysfunctional city hall.
Because people come and go from
No,
positions?
no.
Because nobody.
No.
Why do you think that is?
I know exactly why. 3 months ago, the city, this is on the record, City Commission had a resolution to hire a gentleman named Payne, Payne, and his firm to be the city building official. I asked the question during the meeting. I said, okay, you're hiring a firm, it looks like a great firm, from the mainland, but are they going to identify one person to be here to be the building official? We need to have, because contractors, realtors,
Right.
Property owners need to have that direct contact on a consistent basis, not like a round table of employees from an out-of-town firm to be the CBO, our city building official. It's very important. They said, well, we're not sure, and it's under contract. But the city commission, I voted in favor of it because it looked like a good firm. They were the only applicant to fulfill the job function of the city building official. Never heard a thing afterwards. I mean,
So we don't know if they were hired or not?
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm assuming they weren't because
Because we don't
I don't
have
have anybody. I don't have anybody, any name or anybody.
Right.
But this is just one of a countless number of things
But
that are
listen,
just
Sam, if you don't know, how would we know?
exactly. I don't. I'm left in the dark on a number of things, and I'm telling you, I'm doing this 11 years.
Right.
All 5 previous city managers, all the prior managements, things would be done completely differently, and much more out in the open, much more with fairness and openness and a back and forth. I believe that whatever decision we're making, having, I'm a lawyer, so hearing from my opposition only helps me.
Right.
I am not afraid to hear from a member of the public who has a different point of view, because you know why? That's going to strengthen my position. We're going to be stronger together when we hear the other points of view.
Exactly.
But that's not how this particular administration works, over and over again. And that's pretty clear. Getting back to your question, we need to focus on a more customer-friendly city hall, 100%.
Yeah.
I am very critical of our code enforcement department. I have been for years, and the unfair selective enforcement of code enforcement, that needs to change, and we can change it, but we have to be open about it, have discussions about it. This city commission doesn't have any of that. We need a city building official, right, which we don't know who
Certainly.
that is. And we should follow, by the way, the grand jury recommendations. The grand jury recommendation, it's very unusual for a city to have 2 grand jury reports, right? It's very unusual for a city to have 1 grand jury report out of a criminal investigations giving recommendations on how the city should improve. Very unusual, but we had 2. And the last one was categorically denied by this mayor and this city commission. They only made a few recommendations, and one was look at your land development regulations, and reform them and revise them and update them. And why we voted against that, I don't understand. If you believe that somebody in City Hall is working on that, I have a bridge in Brooklyn that I can sell to you. Okay. It's absolutely not happening.
Right. Well, let's talk about.
I see your son likes the answer to that one.
Yeah. One of the questions that came up, and it's been something that some of the candidates have said, well, I've never been asked this question before. More and more visitors are choosing to stay on boats, floating vessels, rather than traditional accommodations. It's been expanding over the years. Do you believe the city should adopt a policy governing these floating vessels when it comes to VRBO and Airbnbs? Some people say our TDC dollars are being spent on marketing the island, and yet these people who are staying on boats may not be paying taxes, maybe don't have any licensing. What are your thoughts on that?
I am very concerned about transient rentals, vacation rentals, and the expansion of vacation rentals. I suspect that many of these vessels are operating illegally. And I think that this administration has not done nearly enough with code enforcement to go after illegal transient vacation rentals.
Now we're talking this particular, we're going to get into transient rentals in a minute. So I'm talking specifically about, boats and houseboats. They used to be for sale for $50,000, $60,000. Now they're gone up to $150,000, $180,000. So they're getting to be more and more expensive. And we're actually dealing with it as realtors. People are calling us, asking us. They're on Zillow, they're on Realtor.com. It's like a regular sale now. And so it doesn't seem to have the same regulations as regular housing.
Well, the houseboats in Garrison Bight City Marina it is unlawful for them to rent on a vacation rental basis. That is not legal pursuant to their lease, and they don't have the requisite license. So to me, it falls into the category of enforcement by code enforcement, which, like I said, this administration, as far as I'm concerned, is not doing nearly enough about that. And I have specific ideas of how to address that, which should be addressed.
Right.
But as you know, in the market, it is supply and demand, which is what drives market price. And as far as the city marina is concerned, those are residential units. Those are not vacation units. And yes, those market prices have gone up a lot.
Right.
And they go up a lot because the location is ideal. The parking situation is not, to be quite frank. But the slip rents are low.
Yeah.
So and they're intentionally low because a good number of people that live there are workers, are retirees, are the old timers, and we want to keep it affordable for that population. So if I'm not familiar with in the city jurisdiction, if there are vessels operating as vacation rentals, and if they are, maybe there are some at the bite if they have the requisite licensing. I would kind of doubt it, but certainly something that I would think falls under the category of unlawful activity and needs to be investigated and prosecuted.
Well, we're going to stay on that vacation rental. Okay, we're going to talk specifically about the transient rentals. The number of transient rentals in town now is the lowest it's been in a very, very long time, with the elimination of the Trim and Annex transient licenses, right? So they're gone, and as they've expired, the transient license of a house, the license itself is now worth about $500,000. They've been sold on the open market for $500,000. So do you believe that the city should maintain its current cap on transient licenses, or should they expand the number of licenses in the correct zones? Correct zones meaning all across around Duval Street within a block or two, there are transient licenses, guest houses, transient licenses, vacation rentals. Would you consider increasing the number of transient licenses if they're located in that area?
No.
Okay. Can you explain? Can you just tell us why?
I prefer to have less transient rental units, actually. Look, there's a number of reasons why. One is neighbors don't like them, okay?
But if the neighborhood is full of them anyway.
Well, I can tell you Truman Annex, even though they were full of them, I still heard from neighbors who didn't like them.
Well, that's true, and I do believe that the value of some of those will actually go up, because some people didn't want to buy where there's transient licenses. But I'm talking, around the upper end, the southern end of Duval Street that's full of transients. We have a couple of clients who said, there's a house right next door to me. They have a transient. I'm zoned for transient. Shouldn't I be able to buy a transient license from the city for market value so I can do it? And why can't I do that?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of expanding transient rental units. I mean, the market is what the market is, and it's not a priority for me.
Okay.
In fact, it's the opposite. If there was a way for the city to buy transient rental units and turn them into actual housing, workforce housing, that's the direction I would want to go to.
Okay.
And it's actually disheartening to me to hear that they're going for $500,000, because that means that it's not going to be possible to do that.
It's gotten very, very expensive. I've seen them, selling for that much. The other part of this is a few years ago, when you were on the dice, and you probably remember this. It was a proposal that would prohibit if you had a monthly rental, you could get grandfathered in by a certain date.
Yeah, right.
And then anything in the future, no more. Are you in favor of that?
It's too late.
Well,
what the city ended up doing incredibly backfired. So you had, for your listeners who may not know, there was a proposal that the city commission at the time unanimously directed the city attorney to develop an ordinance to restrict in the future they're not transient, non-transient, but the 30-day rentals for residential units. And there's also another ZIP ordinance at the time, and ZIP means zoning in progress. So what ZIP is, the zoning in progress, is when a new law is in development. To be fair to property owners, it is a notice requirement. So the city's giving notice that we're changing the laws, and we're giving you notice as of this date. If you want to make a change with regard to the nature of your property, you want to put your application in to get ahead of this new law, it's giving the public that notice. That's what the zoning in progress law is. So now, what you're referring to is the entire city commission said, we want to put a stop to the expansion of 30-day rentals in residential units. And the way the city attorney recommended at the time was to limit what's called the BTR availability. The BTR is business tax receipts. Right. So in order to have any business in town, any business, a laundromat is across the street, a pet store, a restaurant, you have to have a business tax receipt. In order to rent a residential unit in your house, let's say you have a house and you want to rent it, you have to have a BTR, a business tax receipt. Right. It's just basically paying the city or the county, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, to have the authority to do business. So the idea was to limit those business tax receipts to only those that were already renting. already renting. It didn't have to be 30 days. If they were already renting on a residential basis, they would have the BTR.
Right.
And so what happened? There was a run to the bank, so to speak. So I think it was 800 or 900 owners of properties went and got their BTRs. So they could rent 30 days. So when you ask me the question, am I in favor of it now or not? To me, it doesn't matter because everyone got the BTR. So,
Well, I don't think.
And I'm sure people are maintaining that BTR in case they're,
I mean, I have to tell you that I was certainly a person who, I live full time in my house and I didn't have a BTR.
You probably got one.
And I went and got one.
See?
And the reason I got one is because next door's got one and they're doing monthly rentals. And so for me, I felt, well, number one, I'm probably never going to rent my house out. Okay?
But it could enhance the value.
But if I decided to go on a world trip for a year and wanted to rent my house out, it gives me a lot more flexibility. And if both houses go up for sale, the one that you can rent is worth more than the one that you can't
enhance
rent.
the value, right?
And therefore, there was a pushback, I know, from the realtor community on that. And then it just kind of went away. And when
I was the last one standing.
Okay.
The lobby from the Realtors Association was very successful.
Yeah.
I think it's a very unpopular issue, by the way, in our city.
Yeah.
And I think that, but the Realtors were able to lobby my colleagues. I never changed my position. I keep the same position, but it's moot at this point. It's irrelevant because there would be no value in pursuing that ordinance anymore because, again, the exact opposite effect occurred. And those BTRs have no value because anybody can rent on a 30-day basis.
Right. So regardless of the number,
but the city did get a little revenue, so maybe that's a good thing.
well, it did.
The small
at the time.
amount of the
I mean, I
BTR,
think it's
right.
only $35 per year.
Well,
you
times
know.
800, and maybe it's something.
Regardless of the number of licenses, do you believe the city is doing enough? I think you might have mentioned this already. Do you think the city is doing enough to enforce the current rules, or would you recommend stronger enforcement, and how?
Yeah, like I referenced earlier, the code enforcement, what they should be doing is what they did many years ago, is they do a sting. I don't know why they're not doing it, but all they need to do is arrest one person or two people. It is defined as a crime to rent illegally as a vacation rental. So go out, rent a unit, arrest a person. Go out, rent an illegal unit, arrest the person. That word will get out, and that will be a deterrent.
Right.
If you're not going to enforce the illegal transients, it's going to continue. And I think, I think that's what a major concern is that I hear from the public. When I'm talking to people think that the city's not doing nearly enough about that.
Right. Well, we're going to switch over to another issue that's facing all of us as homeowners and business owners, the property insurance. And property insurance has become one of the biggest obstacles to buying and owning a home now in Key West. Not just your house, but also your business, And many decisions are made at the state level. Are there any actions that you can do as a mayor that would reduce the burden of wind and flood programs for our citizens?
Well, what we need to do is continue to support FIRM, fair insurance rates for Monroe County. I don't know if you know Mel,
yes,
but
of course.
he's amazing. He's one of the leaders of FIRM. We should follow their lead. When the leaders of FIRM tell us we should pass a resolution, or we should do this lobbying effort, or there's this meeting to go to, that's why we have a partnership with FIRM. I haven't seen this mayor or this city commission do that, or this administration, but that's certainly, I agree with you 100%. In my office, I own my office building.
I think I sold it to you.
Yeah, you did.
Yes,
I bought it from you. Actually, you're right. Now that
That's right.
But I don't know if you remember, when you sold it to me, the HOA fee was $250. $250 a month. Now it's $1,750 a month.
Right.
And it's only because of insurance.
Right.
Now, who can afford that? Who can afford? And I own 2 units now. I bought the unit next to me. So I pay $3,500 a month. 80% of that goes through insurance.
Right.
And it's so cost prohibitive for a business person like myself to have to pay $3,500 a month only just for my HOA. And I don't know if you've looked lately, we don't have money for our new parking lot. We need the parking lot. The place is not kept up.
Right.
We don't have the money as an association because all of it has to go to insurance. So the city has very limited ability to control that, really none, because that's, like you said, on the state level. I'm hearing positive things. When I heard, I spoke with Representative Jim Mooney recently, and he said there's some really good things happening. We'll see. But
it does seem to be more on the state level, though. I mean,
Absolutely.
the relationships in Tallahassee very important for stuff like this. I mean, it's like, as mayor, if you become mayor, what do you think? I mean, have you spent much time in Tallahassee, dealing with all those politicians up there and trying to lobby for things down here in Key West?
Not really, but I have very good, strong relationships with others statewide. I'm personal friends with the mayor of Miami-Dade County, Daniela Cava-Levine. I know I sit on the South Florida Regional Planning Council. I've been on the South Florida Regional Planning Council for the last 10 years. So I know elected officials from many from Miami-Dade County, Broward County, Palm Beach County. And we do need to partner. We need to partner with them on a number of things.
Right.
This is one of them. I mean, all the things that fall into the category of home rule. Key West is a very small city.
Right.
I mean, in statewide issues, but we should be partnering with the cities of Tampa and Gainesville and Orlando and Miami and Fort Lauderdale and forming coalitions to make the change that we want to make. Because little old Key West, we're not going to make the change by ourselves.
Right.
I tend to get along with everybody. I mean, typically, I don't have a problem. You can count on my one hand how many people I might not get along with. And we can respectfully disagree on things, but we have to find the alliances and find the people in Tallahassee that will help us. They haven't done enough in Tallahassee to help us with insurance.
I mean, as firm, they're very influential there, but do you think they can do more? I mean, did they need more funding by the city? I mean, what can they do?
My orientation would be whatever they ask for, they should get.
Yeah.
Because look, like anything, whether it's water quality or it's repair of seawalls, I'm just a lawyer. Okay, if you ask me about the rules of evidence, if you ask me in Florida, if you ask me about how to conduct yourself in a courtroom, how to do trial, I'm your guy. Okay, I could be considered an expert on that, at least in Key West, right? But if you ask me how to repair a seawall, you ask me about climate change, I'm going to look for the subject matter experts. We have the experts in town on this. The same thing we did with the hospital. We've made great progress in the last couple weeks on the hospital issues. What did I do? I brought together a commissioner's task force with amazing talent in this town. We've got it here. And firm on the insurance issue is it. So we should do whatever they say. We should follow their advice and proceed that way.
Right. So we stay with some of the things that we've all experienced: intense rains, climate change, particularly last month. Half the city flooded. Last year we had one. My office is in the X zone here. People say to me all the time, they come to Key West, I only want to live in the X zone. And I say, well, there's a lot of structures around the rest of the island that are now built well above flood. So don't limit yourself to just the X zone. So we're here in the X zone, and yet we got water in our office. So a lot of people say, what can we do to maintain our, some people have said we're not maintaining our stormwaters correctly. We're not maintaining what we currently have from an infrastructure standpoint. How can we be better? What would you do if you were mayor to be better?
You know how many presentations we've had on our stormwater system in the last 2 years to the City Commission?
No.
0. That's a shame. That's terrible. We have to make improvements to our stormwater system.
Yes.
Not only with regard to flooding, but also with regard to water quality. You're selling $2 million, $3 million homes to people, and they can't go to the beach.
Well, right now it's kind of what we're dealing with at the beach.
It's not just
in Key West, of course.
It's not just sargassum. It's the health department says it's not safe to go in the water.
Right.
It's not the sargassum.
Right.
It's the pollutants. I believe it comes from the stormwater runoff. So when you have a major flooding event a month ago, and the mayor is silent, the city manager is silent, there's no communication at all, that's not the way to handle it.
Right.
You should. When I'm mayor, I'm going to be on video. I'm going to have press conferences, weekly, bi-weekly, whenever. You can tell I'm not afraid to talk. I'm going to be talking, so you could tell. So you might remember during COVID, Mayor Johnston had almost a daily video opportunity, right? When there was stuff happening, because it was an emergency situation.
Right.
She did a great job of informing the public what was going on.
Right.
So here you have this major flooding event. No one knows what's going on. I hear from people. They say, well, when is my street going to be next?
Right.
No one knows. No one knows.
Right.
So what do we do? That's not rocket science. You say, okay, well, what I would like to do, I would probably ask the District 4 commissioner to be the lead, because that's the biggest area. District 4 seems to have the most flooding here. The island, all over the island is flooding, but District 4 in particular is really heavily impacted. I would ask the District 4 commissioner to take the lead on the issue. But I think we need a working group. I would invite the Realtors, I would invite the Lodging Association, the Chamber of Commerce, residents as a whole. That's going to be my approach on every issue. On every issue. It doesn't have to meet weekly, it can meet quarterly, but there needs to be updates to the community and the business owners. Where is my street on the list of priorities for increased drainage? Where is my street on the list for a new pump station? People talk about Duval Street, for example, and we're going to have a new pump station in there. When? There's no indication of when that will be. So anyway, there's so much we can do, at least from an information perspective, and communicate with the public, and I think that's what's missing right now most.
Right. Well, so let's, there's lots of issues, of course, facing the city, and one of the things that, the governor has proposed is, an increase in the tax exemption. And if that happens, or if it's approved, then we may have a lot less revenue that comes into our local government for spending. Do you agree with what he's proposing?
I don't agree that there'd be a lot less revenue, because all it will do is shift the burden to others to pay the bill.
Right.
So the way that property taxes work, as your listeners probably know, is that there's a total budget of revenue needed. So the city will say from property taxes that we need, let's say $24 million, just to use the number, $24 million. If in fact, and that's about what city collects in property taxes, by the way, per year. Last year I think it was 23 million. So let's just make it a more even number, 24 million. And let's say that, and by the way, the ballot initiative is not till November, so this wouldn't affect us until 2020. Well, we're kind of doing the 2027 budget now. Our budgets go from October 1 to September 30th. So we would call this next budget 27. And then, so really we're talking about 28, our October 1 of 2027 budget going forward. But let's say due to the new exemptions, higher exemptions for homestead, that it's reduced $1 million or $2 million. Whatever that deficit is just going to be put towards the commercial property owners, non-homestead owners. So I'm very concerned about that, because all that's going to do is increase rents. Landlords are going to pass on that increased tax burden to their tenants. So our workforce and working families who pay rents are going to go up. I don't like that, and I don't like the fact that the burden goes to business people. But at the end of the day, honestly think this is it's basically being done for political purposes, and I don't believe it's a real tax savings, because all cities will do that is they'll do what's called special assessments.
Right.
They call. I mean, it's interesting. I aligned on the new fire assessment tax. The city doesn't call it a tax. I call it a tax. Everyone else seems to call it a tax. But the Chamber of Commerce came out against that, and I was the only vote against the fire assessment tax. Because to me it seems like, and the chamber seemed to agree with that, it seems like double dipping, potentially, right? You would, in the one hand, you collect taxes, right? You don't say that there has to be a reduction in taxes from this new tax for the fire department, and I wasn't comfortable with that, without having guardrails to suggest that a requirement that you have to reduce the tax collection by how much you're collecting from a new tax.
Yeah, so with regards to, we have a lot of spending, a lot of proposed spending, the bond, a lot of, I've heard you say previous forums, the city is a wealthy city. We have a lot of assets that the city owns. Some of them, of course, can't be used to raise money, like City Hall or, certain buildings we have. We also have money in reserves. in case we have a catastrophe, in case we have a hurricane for whatever reason. I do believe they're trying to get to 100 days in reserves, and I don't think we're quite there yet. What is your idea about, how we're going to find the money for all of the projects that are happening in town without increasing the millage rate, without, raising the taxes for the local people?
I love the question. The maximum number of reserve days is 92, not 100. It's by ordinance. So the maximum, the
For
ordinance.
some reason, I thought we have 92, we're trying to get to 100.
No, 92 is the maximum we're allowed to have.
Okay.
And 72, I think, is the minimum. That's the range. But so, for example, I'll give you an example. Last year, like every year, I voted against the budget because I didn't agree that there needs to be a tax increase.
Okay.
Right? I always say this. I've said this for 10 years. If I'm going to vote for a tax increase, I have to be able to go to my neighbor and say we've exhausted everything else, and now I can look you eye to eye and say we need a tax increase. I've never been able to do that. So that's why every year the finance director and the city managers have worked well with. We disagree on this issue. I'm upfront about it.
Right.
That's why they don't even try to ask me to vote for the budget, because I will not vote for a tax increase unless I can look my neighbor in the eye and say we need it. Now, the mayor voted for the tax increase last year. She voted for the tax increase the year before. I didn't, because I don't believe it. What's the proof? What's the evidence? The surplus this past year was $1.59 million. Surplus. 1% tax is this year $228,000. You do the math. Was there a need to increase taxes last year? No. The year before, surplus, $2 million. Was there a need to increase taxes? No, because every year there's a surplus.
But
look,
why this year are we trying? So this current budget that's out, they're trying to cut. They're trying to cut 1%. They're trying to cut. Where do we cut? What do we cut in order for us to keep our essential services? Obviously, we have to keep things going. We want to keep our fire department, our police department, all of those things.
Right.
We're talking about improving storm drains. We're talking about now we have new Higgs Beach that we got to deal with. Like, where are we going to find the money? What are your ideas?
None of what you hear about this is accurate or true. Actually,
Okay.
I'll tell you. I can tell you, as a private business person, I have to make my payroll every 2 weeks. Okay? Knock on wood, never had a problem doing that. But I have to be concerned about revenue, and I have to be concerned about expenses. My expenses have to be within my budget from the revenue I bring in from my business.
Of course.
The government doesn't work that way. The government works like this. Government wants more government, and government can get more government by raising taxes. They don't have to think about really pinching their pennies. They don't have to really look at really making the savings costs.
Okay, but are you talking about our government? I mean, we could say that about the United States. I'm
talking about government in general.
Our national debt is going up and up and up every
Government in
single
general.
year. Government in general.
I'm a fiscal conservative, okay? That's how I look at this. I think I pay more in taxes than I have to.
Then you care too,
right?
right?
I can't imagine anyone on the city commission that pays more taxes than I do. I would be surprised. I think I'm the only business person on the city commission at this time. Maybe Aaron Castillo, and I don't know what his ownership interest in the mortuary business. But I can tell you, as a business person, I pay a lot of taxes. So again, it goes to my approach to this, right? And being very conservative about it. So you have a situation where you have a city commission and taking on enormous amount of new debt, which the city has never done before, without a plan to repay it. Okay?
Are you talking specifically about Higgs Beach?
No,
what are you talking about?
that's not even on the. That's a whole other potential debacle.
So what's the new debt that
The
you're
new debt
about?
is the new pump station on Jose Marti by the HOB school. That's $8 million. Then you've got and the fire station.
Right.
The fire station, when it was presented, by the way, as a $42 million building. Have you seen where the fire station is?
Yeah.
How do you build a $42 million building on that piece of property?
Right.
And when that was presented, there were no plans, no architectural drawings, no conceptual drawings. This commission voted for that blindly, without even knowing what they were voting for. Okay, and so in a town with 20,000 people, we need a $42 million fire station. Why couldn't it be $11 million? And how are we going to repay it? And there's no plan for that. And by the way, the debt service that is being proposed without getting to Higgs Beach, without getting to our other flood mitigation that we need, without getting to without getting to our roads, we need a good $10 million to be invested in our roads. And that should have been, by the way, the first bond issued. I strongly disagree that that wasn't done that way. But in any case, how do we get to the point of repaying what's now currently on the books, $2.5 million a year? I've already told you that 1% tax increase is $228,000 a year. That's all that brings in.
Right.
Okay? So you do the math. It's going to take a 12% tax increase for year 2028 in order to pay just that debt service.
So what do we do? If you get elected mayor and all of these things have been approved and are coming, how do you propose that we somehow figure it all out?
Well,
And
first of all,
build, I think an important question is build a consensus so you can try to get everyone behind you. You know, if you do get successful at being elected, how do you do that?
Building consensus on all of these issues is my number one goal. That's something that this particular administration is terrible at.
Right.
They don't have public meetings, workshops. They don't seem to want to have public meetings on these questions. Just look at what I did with the hospital. Look, in the last couple of months, there was a real concern about Cuba. I shouldn't have been the one to call that meeting. Why Commissioner Kaufman calling that meeting? We had 70 residents there. And by the way, at the end of that meeting, because of all the Cuba drone concerns, and by the way, some of the best questions came from members of the Chamber of Commerce. But I would say people felt better. They felt like they had the answers, they had information, and that's what we need.
Well, I did get some questions at that time myself from some people that were interested in buying. What's happening down there with Cuba?
Right.
And who do you call? Who do we call?
Right.
Nobody knew who to call at the time because I don't know, maybe people didn't have the answers.
Right. So same thing with the flooding event a month ago. We should have had a community meeting and say, hey, this is what the city's plan is. This is our order of priorities. This is our funding availability. This is our program. I think people just would like to know. But getting back to your question, with all honesty, the city has made this much more difficult than it needed to be. Taking on Higgs Beach is a potential financial disaster. It is a potential financial disaster. I talked to the great leadership of the Garden Club, for example. Did you know that the West Martello Fort needs a new roof? That's not even on the plans.
Right.
Is that $1 million? Is that $2 million? $2 million? I already told you what a 1% tax increase is.
Right.
$228,000. Are we going to raise taxes 5% just to pay for a roof at the West Martello Fort?
Of course.
Absolutely not. That's not going to happen. So we are setting ourselves up to be entirely reliant on grants. Will there be grants? Yes. But the city, look at the diesel plant. The diesel plant has been sitting there for 10 years. Some people think, I don't know, I'm not going to go this far, but some people think it's intentionally meant to deteriorate so it could be bulldozed. It is in so much worse shape than it was.
Well, it is, but again, is it cost prohibitive? Because yes, it's going to cost a lot of money to do anything with it. And then where's the plan? But
you take over Higgs Beach and you shift the potential tax burden to the city. The city taxpayers, as opposed to the entire length of the Keys. Before, if there was a tax that needed to be raised for Higgs Beach, every resident and business throughout the entire county was responsible for Higgs Beach. Now it's only our burden.
Right.
So I have to tell you, I'll give you another example, the seawall. Have you seen the seawall at Higgs Beach?
Yes.
It's a disaster. You know how much funding is available from the county? $400,000.
So we got $4 million from the county for Higgs Beach for the whole thing, correct? Is that correct?
Something
right.
$3 or $4 million.
So here's my question to you. So the county had it. They didn't want to do anything with it. They haven't done anything with it. It's been left in disarray. It's getting worse and worse. But the people of the city of Key West are the people who are using it, enjoying it. It's right here in our neighborhood. So if we don't take it and the county's not doing anything with it, are we just going to, if we didn't take it, it's just going to get worse and worse? What do we do?
I totally disagree. I didn't propose taking over the hospital, right? You just have to shine the light on these subjects, and the public will do their job in influencing the officials in charge to do the right thing. What happened at Higgs Beach was our District 5 commissioner from the city should have held public meetings.
Right.
We don't need to take over the hospital in order to improve the hospital. We are making great progress at the hospital.
Right.
And we are going to continue to monitor that and hold the hospital district board accountable and support them in their efforts through the new contract process over the next 1 and 2 years. I've never proposed to take over the hospital. We don't have to. We just have to work together and shine a light on it. Young people who are concerned about these issues, older people, everybody get involved. So when I'm mayor, what I will do is I will put the District 5 commissioner, I will say, listen, District 5 commissioner, whoever that is, please take the leading role on this, hold public meetings as your district, it's in your district, and bring everyone together. The people who are concerned about the dog park, pickleball, volleyball, all the stakeholders, the garden club, the African memorial, the cemetery there. There's so much that needs to go on there.
Right.
And yes, it is a challenge. We'll get it done. But it's put, even if we're successful in getting all the grants, as you probably know, in order to manage grants, you have to have administration. You have to have staff people.
Yeah.
So no matter what, it's going to increase the personnel needs for the city. We have to hire new police officers. We have to hire new maintenance people. And yet, again, so these are creating new challenges in a year where we should have been reducing taxes last year and the year before in order to set us up for the following challenges in 2028,
Right.
especially with the new debt service. We're going to handle it. We'll get there, but they're not making it easier for us.
Right. Certainly not. We've had some really great questions, and I think that we're going to finish up by just asking you, Sam, why, in your opinion, in a couple of minutes, why should people vote for you as mayor over the current mayor?
Well, if you listen to this conversation, I think it's pretty obvious that I feel pretty strongly that City Hall can operate much more efficiently, much more in the open, and making decisions emphasizing public input to come to the right decisions, using common sense, being fiscally conservative, bringing in our partners, and supporting one human family. That's important to continue the distinct, special, and unique character of Key West. So I'm excited. I think we can accomplish so much. And for your listeners and for your realtors, I have a lot of friends that are realtors. A lot of in my private practice, I work with realtors and I work with property owners all the time. And people want the same thing. They want a fair government. They want an efficient government, and they want a government that will listen and do the right thing by them.
Mm-hmm. When you're not campaigning and you're not working, what do you do for fun in Key West?
Well, I have a wonderful family, and I don't know if you know this, but my in-laws moved here a couple years ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my father-in-law is a Holocaust survivor, and so we have special time together. My 2 kids, when they're in town, we have 2 dogs. So it's a lot of family time, relaxing and hanging out together.
Sure.
Enjoying things in Key West. I mean, we like going out to various restaurants or just walking around Duval Street or, and hanging out. But a lot of my time as my kids were growing, and I'm sure you understand, it's focused on the kids.
Right.
So whatever the kids are doing, we're kind of doing. So I'm not at the stage yet where all the kids are out of the house, but so right now a lot of it the focus is around the kids.
Okay, cool. Thank you.